Kumulainer Ablan Kamara. We're up to Daf Mem Gimel on the page, on the very bottom of the page. So in the Mishnah, we continue learning activities of the Kohen Gadol. You start the Shchita, you pass it on to the next person, and that next person, it says, placed it on the fourth row in the Heichel. That's the first part of the Mishnah. In order that it shouldn't congeal. It says the Gemara Vaksiv, it says in the, what it seems from here, there's another Kohen standing in the Heichel. And so the Gemara Vaksiv doesn't say the whole Adam that no person should be inside the oil mayid. It should be inside the oil while the Kohen Gadol is doing the Ketores. We'll see later how we know it's talking about the Ketores. And yet you're saying this person should be standing and stirring the blood the entire time the Kohen Gadol does the next activity, which is the Ketores. How can that be? I'm going to be there, but it says, Tni Shel Heichel. Don't say it means that this person is standing in the fourth row of inside the Heichel itself. It means from the Heichel to the outside, he's standing on the fourth row from there. Now, even though there's an ulam between the Heichel and the courtyard, so we're going to see in the Gemara soon, a machlekes if the ulam and the Heichel are really the same status, or the two different statuses. If it's the same status, and when we say Heichel, we mean Heichel and ulam, it's all the same thing. And he's standing outside in front, the fourth row in front of that. As Rashi says, when you go to the Heichel to the Azar, it says the Gemara, now we're going to analyze it. It says in the Braise, it says, that person should not be no Mayid. I would have thought that even in the courtyard, I would have thought that a person shouldn't even be standing in the Azara while the Kohen Gadol was doing his activity of Titus. No, only oil Mayid. Ain't the oil Mayid should be midbar. All I know is the oil Mayid in the times of the midbar. Shiloh, what about Mishkan Shiloh later on, the base of Lami, the base of Migdash Benai? How do you know that? That also there, the Kohen should be standing in oil Mayid while the Kohen Gadol doing activity. Therefore, the Pasuk says, Ba Kodesh. Says the Pasuk, no one stand oil Mayid when he goes into the Kodesh. And which means it doesn't matter which base of Migdash. Says the Gemara further, I would have thought only while he's doing the Kodesh, b'shas matan damim minayin. How do you know that even when he's sprinkling the blood in the Kodesh HaKadoshim or and in the Kodesh, how do you know that nobody should be standing there? It says when he comes in to be mechaper, it says no party should stand on the way. He's coming to mechaper. So because we know it's talking about psych Titus, we'll see how tomorrow we'll discuss how do we know it's talking about Titus. Plus we know it's talking about Matan Damim. When he enters, on his way out as well. Nobody should be staying there until he leaves. But 9 11 it says in the Pasuk, Ad Seisei. After Chapakoi it says Ad Seisei. And then the Chipre Ba'adei, Ba'ad Beiser, I call Kahal Yisrael. So that sequence, Kaparosei, Kodemes, the Kapara Beisei, his Kapara called before the Kapara of his family, the Kapara Beisei, and his family is Kodemes, the Kapara Echav Kohenim. Before the rest of the Kohenim, the Kapara Kohenim came to the Kapara called Yisrael. That's the Braise. So now we're going to analyze the Braise. We learned. You said that the pasuk is talking about while the Kohen Gadol is doing his Ketores, no one else should be standing in the oil mayid. Does he want to my mashma? What do you see in this pasuk talking about? What do you see in the pasuk talking about Ketores? As Rabbi said, about the pasuk the pasuk that this whatever activity the Kohen Gadol is doing should be forgiving the atonement for him, his family, and Klal Yisrael. Which kapara is equal for everybody? Because remember, the power of the Kohen Gadol first is the Chippah Ba'adai, then Uba'ad Beisai, and then so on and so forth. There, it seems that it works like an evolutionary state. Here, the pasuk seems to say that this, whatever his Kohen is doing, is uniform for everybody. Because sprinkling the blood is, we just said, is not equal. His par, which is sprinkle the blood there, is not equal because for his ba'adoi, the ba'beisa, and so on. Because that one there is only the sprinkling the blood is only ba'adoi ba'beisa for him, his family, and for the shape of kohenim. The rest of the Eden they get from the seir mishtalech or the other seir. So therefore, that we know talk Titus. So the mother Teilis Mechaperes is when Teilis is there for kapara. So yeah, but then we learn the mad Teilis actually is Mechaper as well. It says by Keilach over there that suddenly there was a massive plague, and Aaron Kohen went out there with the Teilis and he quelled that the plague. He placed the Teilis by a Chaper and he forgave the people. And we know the Teilis. Tony Rishma learned Amak Teilis Mechaperes. What's the Teilis Mechaperan? Al Lashon Hara. What Aveda actually the Teilis Mechaper on Lashon Hara? Why? Yover Dover Shebechashoyi v'Yechaper on Ma'aseh Chashoyi. Let something which is quiet, which is the Teilis, which is quiet. You do it alone because Vidashim something quiet, and come to Mechaper on Lashon Hara, which is quiet. The Shagadai remains the question doesn't stand. This was not Machlekes, but he's understand because the Koirach wasn't quiet. When Moshe Rabbeinu Aaron said, that you guys are accusing, making all the accusations.
He had a time. Moshe Rabbeinu would have to do the other side of that. So he didn't come and had a time to Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's why the laws had to run with the
Yeah, but they said that Rashi said the word Asher Hamisem Am is Am Hashem. Those words, and that was done in public. So where's the Chashoya here? If I can, he brings another Gemara. The Gemara says the Me'il, because it makes noise on bells, that is coming to Mechaper on things of Koil, which is Lashon Hara. It's anything else. So he made a Torah here. Where's the Chashoya? And Lashon Hara, do you whisper? I mean, the whole idea of Lashon Hara is to propagate, promulgate it.
When you gather everybody, it started whisper.
Yeah, but these words, when he said Atam Misa Misam Hashem.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tanan Hassam, we learned over there. Okay, look, we learned elsewhere. The Mishnah portion.
Lashon Hara is too generally spoken privately. Although that spoken against Moshe and Aaron was not.
So how's it for explaining
Then
about
I
it?
answered that.
Bring the Shagzai there. Shagzai wrote a sefer on a new called Gurus Ari.
It's mitzvah Yitson, showing the Shion Ba'alofa.
Okay. Anyway, and how should we learn? Parshi Mebain Ha'ulam is bad. The Rabbanan came in and decided to expand that Issa. I mean, it sounds like mountains. We'll see Mount Torah, the entire base in the Heichel, base of English. But the Rabbanan, we also want you to not to stand between the Ulam and the Zbeich. There's 22 amas there between the Zbeich and the Ulam. We don't want anybody there b'shas Haktara. We don't want anybody there b'shas Haktara. We'll see later because he might inadvertently walk into the Heichel while that's happening. That you want the Heichel. That Elazar goes along. When do we place a ban on standing between the Beis Hamikdash and the Mizbeach only while you're doing traders inside the Heichel itself, which is the daily activity? But the other trader we do on your kippur, which is in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, then the Heichel parshi. Then what's the next door? Next door is the Heichel of the Beis Hamikdash parshi. There's no point in separating between the Beis. It's too far away. The Gemara no chash. Okay, that's a below the Chiddush. Comes along most about it, but I'm others say Kadi, and others say that it was Kadi. Rashi sometimes says it's the name of a Talmud Chacham. Others say it means we don't know exactly who it is. Rabbi Yossi says Kishem sheParshin Mebain. This is what Rabbi Yossi said. Just like you separate from the Ulam Mizbeach, the Shas Haktorah, just like you separate from the Ulam Mizbeach while you're being makter, Kach Persian b'shas matan parkoim Mashiach u'parhel no sibur v'sida l'chavim. Just like you separate from the ulam and the mizbech during the haktarah, and I'm not sure what I'm talking about the kaidus name or the echel. Kach, so too Persian you separate while you are sprinkling the blood of the parkoim of Mashiach. If somebody made a mistake and put the wrong sack, they would give the wrong sack. And they spray it on the pareiches in the kodesh and on the mizbech in the inner mizbech. Part of Helem does if the entire community made a mistake, or either way if the entire tzibur worshipped the Avodah based on the Hayirah of Bezin, they bring a par or an oila and they bring a goat for a chatas, and that goat they sprinkling the blood is on the pareiches and so on. Okay. Okay, so ha ma then the Bryce continues. Ha ma maila yesh beina hechel beina ulmazbech. So what is there any chumrah in the hechel over between the area between the ulm and the mizbech? and the mile is as follows. And look, in the hechel, parshin, you have to separate bein b'shas haktorah. Whether you did right now, this is what we're shot. Whether the kohen gadol is standing inside and making traders, or bein shalei b'shas haktorah, whether he's not making traders. In other words, if he's not making traders, what is he doing? He's sprinkling the blood on the parechas. So whether he's sprinkling the blood on the parechas, whether he's doing the traders, you have to walk out of the hechel. However, in contrast, after bein ulam the mizbeach ain't portion, we don't separate. Ella b'shas haktorah. We don't separate the kohen gadol was doing the activity only while he's doing the haktorah, but not while he's doing the matdamim. So it seems clearly from here that while the kohen gadol was doing the haktorah inside the kodesh between the ulam and mizbeach, you also still have to leave. Not like Rabbi Lozer says that when things are in the kodesh, it's so far removed outside you don't have to. So it seems clearly b'shas haktorah me parshi, but during the haktorah you have to separate. So isn't it doesn't it show that in the kodesh you still have to separate from the ulam? Says the Gemara, my love, if you're talking about that while the Haktorah inside the kodesh, you have to leave also between the ulam mizbeach. And the only difference between the ulam mizbeach and inside hechel is during a matan dummy, but not during the kodesh. Says Gemara, no. It means that between the ulam mizbeach you have to leave b'shas haktorah de hechel. You have to leave between the ulam mizbeach while you're doing kodesh, not in the kodesh, but in the hechel. So it means just like you leave between the ulam and the mizbech while the haktorah of the hechel, so too you leave anything to do with the hechel. You leave. So therefore also the matdamim as well. Says the Gemara, if so, ma maila v'sulai. If there's also why do you only conclude one chumrah? There's more chumras. So when we say over here that you polish during the haktorah, only during the haktorah, we don't mean the haktorah of the kodesh kodashim. We mean haktorah taking place in the hechel, and it's not continuation of the lefnai lefnim. That's only referring to if you're standing in the hechel, then it matters about the lefnai lefnim. But if you're standing outside, we're talking about the kodesh that's inside the hechel. If we're talking about inside the hechel, there are other differences as well. Like what? So there's another difference. The ilam hechel parshi bein b'shas haktorah today bein b'shas haktorah fa'avnim. The hechel has to leave whether you're being maked in the kodesh kodashim, whether you're being maked in the hechel. In both cases, you have to leave the hechel. But ilam bein ulam mizbeach, but between ulam mizbeach according to you, according to Rabbi Lozer, like parshi ela b'shas haktorah the hechel. First of all, it's only during the haktorah itself, and also only while it's in the hechel, not when you're doing it in the kodesh kodashim. You made a contrast between Titus and matdamim that you leave by Titus and the ulam mizbeach, and not by matdamim. Mashenkin hechel you leave by both. There's another difference. Hechel you leave even you leave from the Titus that's done l'fnai l'fnim, but outside you don't have to leave when Titus is done l'fnai l'fnim. Only when it's done the hechel. There's another difference. The Gemara Haktani we tackle learn. That's exactly what he means. But what it says it means when it says over here that shaloi b'shas haktorah, it doesn't mean when you're not being marked to anything. It's talking about matdamim. Show you what that means. If you're not being marked in the hechel, but rather you're being marked in the lefnai lefnim. You thought before when it says shaloi b'shas haktorah means, but instead you're not doing traders, you're doing sprinkling the blood. But you know, that's exactly what it means. Shaloi b'shas haktorah means it's not doing any torah in the hechel, you're doing it in the lefnai lefnim. So if you're standing in the hechel, you still have to leave. If you're standing in the ulam mizbeach, you don't have to leave if it's not b'shas haktorah, which means it's being done lefnai lefnim. Whether it's shazak in the hechel, whether it's shazak in the hechel, but rather it's shazak there in the final thing. But the bein ulam mizbeach and portion you don't leave. Ela b'shazak only when the kodesh is taking place in the hechel, not when the kodesh is taking place in the kodesh kodashim. So if that's the case, it's still another chumrah. The hilu behechel parshi in the hechel you separate bein big dusha today bein dusha knifni bein hechel bein like parshi dusha hechel we're only leaving in the dusha of the hechel and not matan damim. So there's two differences. One regarding matan damim. And outside you don't leave it by matan damim, and number two that you don't leave because when the case is taking place in the kodesh kodashim. It's all the same thing that you leave the hechel for fly of name, or whether you leave because the Torah is owned, whether you leave the fact is you're leaving. So therefore it's all included on this one example, but it's the same thing. We're not talking about the so much examples, more about the Prisha. And Ulam Mizbech, you don't leave either because of Kodesh Kodashim and Matan Damim. And so therefore you don't have to you don't have to spell out both differences because it's the same idea. And the only thing outside you're leaving for is for Kodesh that's done in the Heichel. Nothing else. Not Matan Damim and not Kodesh in the Kodesh Kodashim. So the Gemara we learn
It's just a precaution, so you should go.
so we're not going to make us exactly. So we're not going to be so much. We learn. He said also you have to separate if they're sprinkling the blood for the Par Kohen Mashiach or Par Helder Tzibur. Oh, they just sprinkle the blood inside on the Bereshit and the Bechazov. Menola, and how do you know that you have to be played when these things happen? No matter what, you learn out kapora mekipuri. We learn out kapora here from kapora and kipuri. This is later. Nobody standing by with chapis. Over here, there's also kapora. We learn from here that mala is that ice. There's a Mishnah in Kalim that goes that lists the hierarchy of kedusha. You know, there's Yisrael to the Shalayim and Harabayis to the Shalayim, and then the Chayil around the base of Migdash, Harabayis, and there's Nashim, the Gabi, the Chayil, and then so on and so forth. You work your way up, and then it says there between the Ulam and the Mizbech, and then and all these differences. It's not Pshat in the Rabbanan we're saying there's a hierarchy. It's all Mahatzai, the Allah Moshe Sinai, and therefore the Prisha as well. There will be differences in Prisha. The Heichel has one level of Prisha, and outside another level of Prisha. So in other words, when we say between the Ulam and Mizbech, you shouldn't be standing. It's only Midrabanan. It is only Midrabanan. So maybe inadvertently you can end up walking inside the Heichel. But the rest of that Zara, we don't have to worry because that's a step lower in Kedusha, so we're not going to go there. So in other words, between the Ulam and Mizbech is one level of Kedusha. We're not going to include the rest of the courtyard. Nobody should be standing while the Kohen Gadol is thing because it's a different level of kedusha. So the Gzeiras Rabbanan reflect the hierarchy of kedusha. So that this whole level of kedusha, all is mehatzeder.
So if you've got the union of Sha'or Mark and with doing showing to make sure people don't enter the wrong place and all that sort of thing. So if you've got a risk, you should have a Kohen standing at this period of time at the entrance to the Ulam to say you can't go in there. And
there was, but on the other side. Not on the side which is bad, on the side right before that.
Yes, and would you stand outside the top of the stairs in the outside?
No, you're allowed to walk to the Mizbeach, you're allowed to. The best is kind of allowed to.
But what's the concern? The concern you're going to the Ulam.
So what the Kohen himself might forget. The guard himself might forget.
So you have to put one Kohen who's a guard.
Who's a guard, the guard, another guard.
So then you'll have the end.
That's why we do this. Nobody should be. Rabbanan came along and said nobody should be standing between the rooms. But we're not going to go and tell you not to stand the rest of the Zohar because that's a low level of Krishma Torah. And therefore we're not going to make a Gzeda to Gzeda. It's a separate area. But if it's only that if Mahatorah, everything's really the same kedusha, everything is the same kedusha, then why would the Rabbanan only ask for this part and not this part? It's all the same. So ask the whole thing and make it easier. So the Gemara, this is how they learn. This is how the kedusha is done. What's the reason why we ban people standing between the Ulmas? Maybe a thing will happen and virtually they're going to walk inside. For sure. Let's ban them from the fire. So it's all one kedusha. Maybe this is going to happen. They're going to walk inside. So the Gemara says no raya. Why not? There's nothing standing. There's a real shash. People might walk in from the Bein Azora. We have been in the section between Ulmazbeach into the base of Midrash because there's nothing there to remind them. When you have the Mizbeach, it's not a direct line, so therefore it's easier for people to remember, hey, I shouldn't be here. There's nothing to remind them. Azora, the rest of the courtyard, even the Ika Mizbeach, since the rest of the courtyard there's a Mizbeach, a Chitzon, staying there and intersecting the way, Minker and Milsa. So they sort of remember, and then maybe you put a person standing there to remind them. Now here's an issue. We learn from here that Kedushas Ulam v'Heichel Chodem Milsi. We ban the Eichel and the Ulam. We don't ban the outside between Ulam and Mizbech. Zanaya that Ulam and Heichel have the same level of kedusha. It's one big, even though this is an antechamber and that's the room itself, but it has the furniture, the shulchan. But nevertheless, we treat it as one kedusha. The Isal Kedata, because if you can tell me that's the Kedushin, the two Kedushas. So Ulam Gufa Gzeda, if the two Kedushas, so the Heichel is where the traders are taking place. The Ulam is only the Rabbanim, because it's a low level of Kedusha. So why are we then banning between the Ulam and Zbech? That's a Gzeda Gzeda. It's a second Rabbanim. Ulam Gufa Gzeda, the Nekim and Nig Gzeda Gzeda. So Rabba wants to learn that the Ulam and the Heichel are one area, so therefore the Rabbanan only stepped in outside. Says Loy, no, not Dafka. And they argue the Rabba. Ulam, Ubeinu Ulam, Zbeach Chodig. He says that the Ulam is not one level with the Heichel at all. There's no furniture there. The Ulam has the same level of Kedusha as the outside, between the Ulam and Zbeach. The Ulam and Beinu Ulam Zbeach, Chodig Kedusha is all one Kedusha. And therefore, when the traders say, nobody should Chaladim shouldn't be should be the Kaddish, the Rabbana came along and banned the next level, and the next level is the Ulam together with the area between Ulam and Zbeach. Heichel Ulam Shtei Kedushas, but the Heichel Ulam are two separate Kedushas. Here we have a machlekes whether the Ulam and the Heichel have the same level of Kedusha or not.
So if you didn't have in the Mishkan, you didn't have this idea of an Ulam.
No.
So why did the best need the Shabbat?
How come he has Hashem?
Because it's
The pasuk. How come he had Hashem? He's called this is David told Shlomo Melech. Why David should want it? I don't know. That's what he said. Okay. Further, now we learned different. We make in our Mishnah a whole bunch of contrast between the traders that was done on Yom Kippur for special for Yom Kippur, and then the other two traditions that day or the rest of the year. One of them was every day they used a shovel made out of silver, and over here and by Yom Kippur they make gold. Says the Gemara, my time of why the Torah is worried about the Mamash Yisrael. Now, the can ask. Sometimes we say, "Ein aniz makam ashidus." You have to be extravagant. Don't skimp. And then sometimes we say, "Atayda chasam man Yisrael." So the second time we already had this here. So Rashi says something here, which is interesting, which probably is the rule. Rashi says over here, when do you say a chasam man Yisrael? When it's getting ruined. This cave, because you're putting in half coal in there, it diminishes the gold and ruins the gold. Then we say Tefillah Chasam on Yisrael. Other things which don't get not adversely affected, then forget. Ein ani is more kamashis. Hayem chaytish of gold. The boy Machni, he said they put in the coal. My time, why? Why is it? We said in the Mishnah that on Yom Kippur, all of the times you had two shovels. In one shovel you scoop the coal, and then the other shovel you pour it into. And over here on Yom Kippur, the same shovel you scoop to the coal is what you bring into the Kodesh Kodashim. My time is the Kohen Gadol. We're trying to reduce the number of activities he has to do, and therefore we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Every day we said in the Mishnah we do 4 kavim, and then we put into another shovel that's 3 kavim. So 1 kav gets scattered all over the place. But on Yom Kippur, there's a special activity of traders. We use it's the same shovels. The shovel takes 3 kavim, and that's it. So we learned this so he had an extra kav of coal that's scattered around. They sweep it up into the creek of water they should go through. Why do they do that? Maybe they just did to show they're extravagant. They weren't skimpy, so therefore they took a big amount and then let a little bit scatter away, fly away, and the rest they put in. Doesn't say why they did that. Why we like a part of the necessary part of the avodah to have all this left over. This one seems another shit even. Tani Chada, one place in Kav that they scattered around 1 kav excess coal, but Tani the kabayim 2 kav. How does that work? Bishleim Hakzani Kav is a abundant. What's a Kav abundant? It was a 4 kav thing, and they put in the 3. And the other opinion we had in the Mishnah was Rabbi Yossi. He said it was a 6, it was a saw, which is 6 kav. Now 6 kav in the verses 3 leaves you 3 kav. Who holds that you have a remainder of 2 kav? Who's that? Rabbi Yossi. Who is that? Rabbi says Rabbi Shmuel, that is actually Rabbi Shmuel. He says no, it was a 4 kavin, but he says the shovel that the Kohen Gadol used on Yom Kippur was actually a 2 kavin. The traders, when he walked in to do the traders was not a 3 kavin shovel, it was a 2 kavin shovel. So you fill a rect over there 4 kavin, and you put in the 2 kavin shovel. It's a remainder of 2. So Kabai Machnis. Rabashi says I told him Rabbi Yossi, but even Rabbi Yossi. The Achikam is I learned. Every day, bodies. Every day they used a saw midbaris, which is 6 kavin, but umare letech shloisha kavin shalmis. A saw midbaris is the equivalent when Rabbi Yeshi said a saw 6 kavin, he said midbaris, which is the equivalent of 5 kavin Yerushalmis, because it went up by a sixth. So what he really is talking about 5 kavin Yerushalmis. They put into a shovel of 3 kavin Yerushalmis, therefore the excess was 2 kavin. But he was talking about when he said saw, he meant a saw midbaris, which is the old system 6 kavin. Every time it was a heavy the tool, but today on your kippah it was a light one. Make it as easy as possible. Every day the walls of this keli was thick. It was tender. That's why it was lighter. The handle itself every day was short. You picked up by hand. Here the handle was long, so you can put it between his arm and his body. My time of why? Because his arm can help out. Every day, but ashtik means other Rishonim means a cover. It's to cover the face of the crane, it shouldn't burn, or cover the coal, it shouldn't lose the heat. But ashtik is the ashtik, strange word, it means a bell. It has some kind of ring around the pot that it make noise. It says the nishma koil b'el kodesh, so the kohen god will make noise. But what's the shadish of the word? I don't know. The ashtik. Oh, it says the word shtoik. It's like a euphemism. Shtoik means to be quiet. So made as a euphemism because it actually made noise.
To get people to be quiet.
Okay, but the reason was that before you knock on somebody's door, you have to tell them, announce your arrival. We had before. That's the word of the son of one of the deputies. Every time the gold is yellow, now it's red. There's 7 types of gold. Zov, the Zov Tov. You have gold, you have regular gold, and then you have good gold. Because then the pasuk in the gold in that land was very good. By saying very good, that means the other gold, which is not so very good. It then says in another pasuk, it says that Chidim brought a gold from Ophir, a place called Ophir. The Zov Mupaz, and he brought gold that is shiny. We'll see in the soon. The Zov Shachud was like a chut, it was very thin. You can twist it. And the Zav Sagur, we'll see what that means. That why it's called the gold that seals up, and the Zav Paravim, which we'll see means parim, the red bull, and that's what the red gold is. Zav is Zav Tayyip, Zav Oifid, Asim come from Oifid. Zav Mupaz means it shines like a brilliant, like a diamond, like precious stones. Zav shechut that you can. It's a thin strand and you can tie it around like a string. Zav sagar, when we sagar closed zav mishash nifta kolach nidus and is got it such beautiful gold. When they open the store, sell this gold, everybody shut down. Zav pravim, the gold of pravim should doim miladama parim. It's similar to the red of the parim, so therefore it's red. So that's why they use red gold, either red, because red is better gold, or because red is like dam podim, and that's what the kapara is, and we want it to look like dam podim. Rashi has no chamisha hain, only 5 types of gold. But zav and zav toiv are not kinds of gold. The chol chad v'chad, there's 2 levels. Is by zav, a level of purity, and the zav toiv, and each one of these is the gold that is pure, and one gold is even purer. Time we learn. Every day gold is yellow, Adam is red. That's why it's called Zav Pravim. It is similar to the blood of the par, which is red, or to remind us of the par. Okay, we'll stop here.